Hey Clashers, Electro Dragons are played a lot of times completely wrong, and this is why we're watching today a couple of attacks of one of the best, in my opinion, the best Electro Dragon attacker out there. So let's dive into it. And the first thing I really want to highlight is if you are interested into more attacks of Nikita after this video and you say, iTzu, this looks crazy, I want to maybe practice this, I want to see if I can maybe learn this strategy as well, but those couple of attacks which you showed today, they're not enough. Don't worry, I have the YouTube channel of Nikita actually linked down below in the description, so if you want to check out more Electro Dragon attacks of him, don't worry, he got you covered. But for now, we want to watch a couple of attacks, and the first thing he typically does is taking down a couple of key defenses with surgical Electro Dragons. This is like kind of his signature move, where he is using Electro Dragons in a surgical way, and you can even see that by now from a lot of pros. A lot of pros have kind of like copied this approach and really turned this into like a common strategy by now in Town Hall 15. Electro Dragons at the moment, I think you can easily say that they're one of the top 3 troops right now in the game on Town Hall 15, which might sound strange because most people kinda know Electro Dragons as the noob spam strategy or the noob spam troop. Well, not really. As you have just seen, you can use them in a really surgical, strategic way to really enable then the rest of your Electro Dragons to take down another certain part of the base. And this turns them into a really big threat, especially as the villages with higher and higher tower level are getting bigger and bigger, that you can't really always have those gaps in the base to actually prevent those Electro Dragon bounces and chain value. On this one you can see around the town hall, there's a lot of value really close together, which means those Electro Dragon chains are actually incredible. As well, you can see most of those attacks are with 1 or less air expos. The reason for that is that the most and strongest things in Clash of Clans are actually ground based, like your heroes. The heroes are the key thing. Even if you're doing a Lalo attack after, the key in most of those attacks are the heroes. How do you counter them? Yes, that's right, with point damage, and you need that with the ground expos. The next thing is, which is probably the second strongest thing at the moment in the game, is the Flame Flinker. This siege is broken if you know how to use it, and the pros showcase that a lot of times. And then the counter is, that's right, the ground expo. So you can see the pattern by now, right? So this is why if you're getting higher and higher in Legends or higher like skill-wise and you have to face top bases, they are most of the time with ground expos. As well on this one, this base is kind of gone. Without having to use King, Roy Champion, Queen ability, or a ton of spells. And this is just insane because Town Hall 15 is supposed to be hard. You could think now this was a one-time attack. But no, not really. This is one of the most popular high legend bases of the last season. So you can see that as well, like a lot of the top players from last season are still running a Simmer or this base. It has defended incredible well, but let's take a look at what he does with Electro Dragons versus this base. He's starting off again with the Flame Flinger on the top left. Electro Dragons again for that Eagle Artillery, and he's doing that again with just sending a couple of them in surgically into this bottom part of the base. While one of them is funneling, the other one is just straight into the action, straight into that Eagle. But now we have the Rage Tower activated, we have 2 sweepers against that. I by now would say, fine, great value, but what he does, he is reinvesting a Rage and a Freeze. And by that, he's already taken down half of this base. The Flame Flinger at the same time is already working, which is about to take down 2 air defenses. And what is important against E-Dragons? That's right, it is air defenses. By now, it's mainly the Town Hall compartment or area, because it's not really a compartment, which is dealing the most damage by now. Which means if he can take that out, there's nothing really left in this base except the monolith, which is then next on the menu. So by now, you already figured out those lightnings are incredible. He can actually push his Electro Dragons through all of that. And take a look at the Flinger. It's still alive, it's funneling all of those Electro Dragons actually into the core of the base to take down that monolith, that key defense, to actually take down the rest of the base. And another thing, which by now is kind of obvious, is there is only a second hero invested by now. Yes, it's the Warden, and yes, it's the king. At this point, I really want to highlight the pet combination, because this pet combination might be different to a lot of other common strategies. A lot of other common strategies are always using kind of the default options, while you have for air attacks the owl on the warden, Diggy is always on the royal champion, obviously unicorn on the queen, and then you have either the phoenix on your king, or, which works as well, is the Frosty. On this one though, you are using the Town of 14 pet, the Yak, which is super important because you do not have any wall breaks, which is coming really clutch on this one, because this Yak is going to open up easily those walls, and with the king together, it can finish off the base. This is another second attack where he can swag actually 2 entire heroes. Yeah, this time it's not another hero ability which he swags, but I think 2 hero swag is still somewhat impressive, especially if he has still 2 spells left, which were not even used in this one. But let's just jump into the next attack. Versus ring bases, a lot of people are struggling to find an opening with this strategy. On this one, you kind of have to figure out what type of base, or like what type of defense is exposed the most, or where you can create the best pathing overall. This is like, those are like the 2 things you can go for with versus ring bases. One thing on this one is the eagle is somewhat exposed, you could say there, right? Like you have the air defense in front of that, you have the defending warden in front of that, so there's still a lot of things in front of that eagle, but it's somewhat the best choice you could go for. At this point though, the chains are really unfortunate. Nothing is really going for the air defense. The first electro dragon already down. The chains now though are somewhat decent, but still the eagle is not going down. At this point, I would just panic if I would be in this position, and I would just re-drop a couple of electro dragons, most likely 1. What he does though is now a really interesting approach, because remember, he is running the super minions, and they are exactly here for a case like this, where building is staying up after the electro dragon dive, and he's even investing that rage. And with that being invested, this eagle is actually going down, while he's already starting confidently, with a really like a lot of confidence, on this far right side. Versus those ring bases, something you can really nicely do is just send in a blimp. A blimp for the town hall is probably your easiest way to take it out without having to worry about it. After that, the electro dragons can just unfold their power and take down most of the key defenses, like Scattershot, Monolith, X-Bows, all of those stuff. Then the heroes can just clean up, and this is why it's so important to use the Yak on the king. Another thing which is asked a lot with this strategy is, why do you run the Phoenix on the Warden? Well, the reason might be a bit strange, and in the beginning I was not really understanding it either, but the reason why people are running it is because of the core of the base. What do I mean by that? Well, if you bring the owl, which would be the obvious choice, if you rage up the warden and the owl together, they deal a lot of damage. And this is actually quite bad if you're using electro dragons, because if you use electro dragons, you want buildings to be, well, quite healthy, so they can chain through the entire base. But when you're raging your electro dragons, you're going to rage the warden and the owl as well, which means that overall you have a problem, because those 2, well, the hero and the pet, those 2 individuals can actually burst down a couple of defenses, which result into less chains overall. This is why a Phoenix egg, which is not dealing any damage in the middle of the base, is way more efficient, because buildings are more healthy and you can actually get more chain value in the entire attack, which is, I mean, that's what it's all about with the electro dragons. On this one, it was a close call. Maybe he could have used the royal champion, but again on this one, he's going to swag another hero. Let's check out the next attack, which is versus a diamond base. I feel like as soon as you're progressing higher and higher in Legends, you will figure out there's 2 base types which are just way more used than any of the others. And that's overall the diamond base or the box base. Those are like the most common. While ring bases, I mean, they can be just 3-star by everything. Even on Town of 15. Smash, like Super Bowler, Titan Smash, whatever, is just going to wreck your base. Super Archer Blimp is super hard to defend. It's just a really rough strategy if you want to run it in Legends. The next thing though is then, is, well, under 3-star bases always were bad in Legends. So what is left? It's box bases or diamond bases. In Clan Wars, in Clan War League and stuff, those diamond bases are kind of bad versus the recall spell, which is not used that often in Legends. So it's somewhat decent to use a diamond base in Legends. But again, box base and diamond base are the most used. So let's check out how and what he does on this one. Already taking down the eagle, and again using the flame flinger on one of the flanks. Because what he tries to do is he's trying to create pathing into the town hall, and their troops are sticking together. That is really important. They should not split up too much. Especially because in this army you are using rages really often with your surgical first couple of electro dragons. And this means there are not too many rages left, which you can then use to really spread out the value with your main squad. So you have to really limit on how many troops you can actually catch with those chains and the rage which you have with your main push. And that's why it's really important to have them stick together. That's kind of long story short. Next thing is that monolith in the core. That's always really important to just freeze it up, just make sure that's not dealing any damage, because as soon as that's down, which he gets by now, there is no point defense damage left in the base which can actually damage your heroes. We have talked about how important it is to actually have ground expos to take heroes down. Because what this strategy does so well, and why some people are maybe confused about, well, ground expos are super useless versus heroes. You can see that there's only one ground expo left. Well, the normal approach on how people are attacking bases is heroes first, and then Lalo, for example. Heroes first, or at the same time, and then Dragon and Dragon Rider spam or whatever. So you typically do not use your heroes as delayed in this strategy. So it feels like this strategy is kind of countering the meta to some degree. It's really good versus box, it's really good versus those diamond bases. And yet again, he can swag a Roy champion and 3 freezes. So if by now you say, iTzu, this strategy looks quite interesting, I want to watch more. And I said, don't worry, you can just check out Nikita's YouTube channel and see if you can learn some more stuff over there. Overall, really huge shout out to Nikita for sharing those replays always every month with me. And I hope you enjoyed this video. Thank you so much for watching. I will see you guys back tomorrow for the next video. Until then, see ya and bye bye.